Good evening! This is Tea with Teo, where I spill the tea that comes towards me. Bet you thought you seen the last of me, huh? Now, today's tea, we're going to be talking about pride, preference, prejudice, and privilege. Because a lot of bitches got it twisted, really. Now, speaking on pride, as a cisgendered black male, I know I have privilege as a male, so what I'm going to use that privilege to do is to show up and show out for the voices that have not been heard. Let's keep in mind that Pride started as a riot. Marsha P. Johnson said, you know what, enough is enough, and threw that brick at that cop and said, you know what, this is it, which has now turned into a celebration. But over the years, let us not forget the people that have died along the way. We have Matthew Shepard as an example. Matthew Shepard was beaten bloodier than Christ and left for dead, and the only place that there wasn't blood was from the tears coming down his eyes. Let's also keep in mind that in other countries, people are still being prosecuted and killed for their sexual orientation. And also in the last 2 years, James Miles, a 9-year-old boy, decided to commit suicide because he did not feel supported and was bullied for being gay. A 15-year-old a year later, decided that he was going to commit suicide as well because he was being bullied. So when you say you're not... Well, let's also not forget about the nightclubs and the shootings that happened there. And also keep in mind that Marsha P. Johnson marched for your ass to say that you don't want to go to Pride. So, again, just critically think about other voices, other identities, and other things that have happened in the last few years and to people before you say, I don't want to go to this or have my sexual orientation put out on blast. Because realistically, the reality is we are being harmed, we are being physically beaten up and just dismissed. And that's not right just because of our sexuality. That's just the real life tea, honestly. Now, moving into, honestly, preference and prejudice, because I'm going to do it in one, and it's not your typical thing, and it's actually even a slight bit overwhelming for me. So, we know that there is a hierarchy of who is more attractive than the next within the gay community, and that can be based off of skin tone, that can be based off of certain expectations that people assume, or stereotypical expectations that people assume on people, that can be from height to weight to a bunch of different things in an already marginalized group. And unfortunately, that does affect people of color more so, I want to say, just because in my life, it did affect me as a younger gay kid. As a younger gay kid, I was online and I was talking and going around to people, and what it showed me was, especially when it came to sharing photos, a lot of these men had stereotypical porn representations fueling their preferences. So they would message me saying, BBC this, BBC that, hung this, could you be my dom, hung, daddy, top, whatever. And that instilled in me as a young gay man that if I did not meet that expectation, that I was basically worthless to my greater community for dating, for sex, for anything, realistically. And I know that's just not the case, but because I was so young and impressionable, being like 15, 16, whatever, just being on there trying to gain some experience, because being a young gay Jamaican man, you don't really mix gay and Jamaican. It just doesn't really work. No one's really going to guide you along those things. So I went on Grindr, and Grindr gave me a hell of an awakening and made me feel like I had to body modify myself just to fit that expectation. So what that made me do, all those preferences and prejudice, what it made me do is buy things to like try and extend my penis. And honestly, sis, that's just the tea. That's how I was made to feel through people's preferences and prejudice, because my time is not the worth of my time is not based on my skin tone or how low my dick hangs. It's based on my brain and being able to connect with me. And if you're using your preferences to say that you would never have anything in common with me or you could never connect with me because of that, well, you're just being ignorant and you're being an ass. So don't think that you are just a good person because, you're a good person and you attend these things. If you have that in your mentality and you can't even simply offer coffee to someone that you aren't sexually attracted to, or you only respect people that you're sexually attracted to, then I'm sorry. You're part of the problem and you need to fix that. And at any point, if you watch this video and you feel you need to change something, reflect on that critically, honey. Reflect on it. If you watch this video and you feel you need to change something, reflect on that critically, honey. Reflect on it. And as I'm saying this applies to everyone, everywhere. But I am specifically bringing my experience from living in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Because unfortunately, and again, when I say gay white men and whatnot, don't automatically assume that when I bring it up that I mean specifically anybody, because unfortunately it was the greater white gay community that had made me feel in the way that I do, and still have to keep in mind now being 22. So we know that this shit goes on. We know that this stuff goes on, and I'm done playing like it isn't, and I'm done playing like people don't respond to other people faster based off of who is sexually attracted to who, because everyone's time is worth a response, unfortunately. Like, I say that because I try to respond back to anyone and everybody, because I know, unfortunately, what it's like to be dismissed or disregarded. Lastly, we are going to talk about privilege, and again, at any point, if you want to even have a discussion with me about certain things that have happened in your life, or things that may have been more racially charged or, stereotypically assumed, feel free to message me. Now, talking about privilege, as a cisgendered black gay man, I have privilege being a man. And what I can do is use my voice to try and create space for other people's voice who have not been heard and continue to not be heard over the last few years when it comes to trans women, trans men, people of amputees, people of color. These voices have not been heard properly and coherently in a way that is understandable for the greater community. Because unfortunately people like to say, oh, does this really go on? This shit doesn't go on. They're being extra. No, this is the reality. And what the reality is we as cisgendered people should be creating spaces for these people to talk about their issues, because unfortunately they are the people that are going through it the most. We have missing trans people. We have people of trans identity being killed just left, right, and center, and no one's thinking about that when they talk about, oh, I don't think. Now, apologies for the video being as choppy as it is, and again, I am not the dictionary on trans issues or even black issues, but all I can do is say my piece as a person of color and a person who acknowledges his privileges. Now, I'll also even, just because it's who I am, I'll even say, not really, a slight sorry to the white men or gay white men that I have gotten on about their preferences. You now see where it comes from, and you see how harmful it can be to people like myself. So, clean slate, we can get to know each other if that is something you're able to do, because I know it's something I'm able to do, but now you see where it comes from, and these westernized beauty standards can be damaging to people like myself. Again, just food for thought, because that's all I want people to do, is just to critically think about their actions and the things that do pre-exist already and how they affect certain people, especially in an already marginalized group like the gay community. So just think about that before you dismiss another person for their... Anyways, this has been Tea with Teo, and I hope you enjoyed.